DeTrumping mind, body, and soul. I'm guessing a lot of people have their own idea about what would help put this particular chapter behind us, but I know what it's like to experience narcissistic abuse and what it takes to recover. Actually, that's not accurate. I think I'll be recovering from narcissistic abuse for the rest of my life, but I know what it's like to make progress in recovery and to keep going and be on the mend. We have a country that's experienced narcissistic abuse. Probably the whole world has, and all the enablers, including the flying monkeys, the supporters and advocates of the narcissist, the people who glom onto and support the narcissist to, well, for whatever reason. I can go into that another time. Of course, he's not the first tyrant and comes from a long line, but let's see what I can get for de-trumping mind, body, and soul. First, I see someone with their hands above their head and their hands are clasped together, like in a circle around their head. Now they're dancing, really rocking out, celebrating in this private circle with their arms. And then I see somebody, oh, I see somebody giving the bird flipping someone off. You know, we can dance, we can set boundaries, we can celebrate, but we also need to express and work through our emotions. So often we want to go straight from hurt to compassion. When we really need to stop and feel the anger, we need to let it run its course. We need to let anger have its say. Anger helped us stand up and push back again and again, and we can give it some appreciation for what it did and does to protect us and keep us moving forward. Anger can propel us forward often when we'd like to just throw the covers over our heads. I used to think of emotions as unwanted intruders. Now I know that's only because I was out of practice feeling and working with these brilliant, lion-hearted protectors. We all are, and we can all relearn what emotions are and how they're helping us or not, and what they need from us to keep flowing. I guess that's the first thing. Emotions are energy and need to flow. There is so much we weren't taught concerning our very own mind-body system that our ancient ancestors knew, lived by, and passed down through the generations. Our ancient ancestors knew so much more than we do about our brilliant emotions, incredibly protective survival system, how to use the mind for other things than worrying or obsessing. They knew our bodies are masters of guidance and intuition. Our emotions, those intuitive geniuses that we're taught to suppress from the moment we're conceived. Often what we think our emotions are kind of suppressed, distorted versions of themselves and can be confused with survival responses. Not knowing the difference between a survival response and an emotion can make emotion seem overwhelming. Heck, even knowing the difference takes some unwinding. I used to have this terrible terror and panic feeling as I was falling asleep. Eventually, I was able to learn my mind-body system was offering me a chance to renegotiate past difficulties, and that relief was within reach. Now I'm seeing a sheep, like a woolly sheep almost with dreadlocks, and I see, maybe it's a bighorn sheep. I see two people kissing, and I see a dog licking the side of someone's face. Looks like someone who just woke up in bed, and the dog came up and licked their face, and they're rubbing the back of the dog's head. Bighorn sheep are about wanting that new beginning and the couple new connection, and I like the image of waking up to a new day, to the loyalty of a beloved dog. It's beautiful. Again, two people kissing, an older couple, so maybe a wiser connection. I see a woman with a cell phone, and I see a woman on the cell phone like a video call, and the woman on the phone. Inside her head is a nuclear explosion. I think a lot of us can relate to feeling like our heads were going to explode, or little explosions going off in our brains, and to making connections with other people who felt their heads were going to explode too. We understood and found each other. And I see a brain all lit up, and now it's expanding out like a cloud. And I see a big afro, curly afro. It's blue, it's light. It's made of light, and it's a very light blue color. The brain is lit up brightly, and I see little suckers on the surface of the brain, like the suckers on an octopus. Is that what they're called? The suckers are all over the brain, and then I see a nautilus. And I'm seeing all these neural connections in the brain lighting up, and then there's a light around the head, like a string of lights around the head. They're thorns. It's a crown of thorns, but it's made of light. You know, we're all brainwashable. And as a person who's overcome chronic pain and chronic habits, that's good news. We can change old patterns. We can change our brains. We can change our neural networks and connections. We took in a lot of toxic information, became almost glued to the constant bad news. But there's light now, clearing and cleansing us. The nautilus, that symbol of balance in nature, so spectacular. Even the crown of thorns is there, but made of light. There's a burden, but lightening the burden a bit. I'm getting what looks like an Escher painting or a drawing where the head is being unraveled like a big orange peel. I'll put a picture of that if I can find it. This isn't to be naive about the future, but what I asked for was DeTrumping mind, body, and soul. That private healing that happens inside, and I'm getting healing insights about how that looks. We can see how tuned in we were, and now rebalancing that level of focus to now lightening and detoxing and airing out our minds, letting in the fresh air. I see someone with headphones on, and I see them rubbing their face and then rubbing their ears, pushing off the headphones. They don't want to see or hear anymore. I see somebody stretching. I see several people in a row putting their hands up above their heads in a circle above their heads. I saw this at the beginning, I think, making that space around themselves, that private space to express all that we felt and feel, and reestablish the trust internally between our minds and bodies and our spirits. I see somebody stretching and putting their chest out really big, just a really big stretch. Then an angel with wings, and its wings come off, and it looks at the wings a bit surprised that they're just hanging there in the air and taking a pause. And then it turns and puts the wings back on. What did we have to put down that we can now pick back up? I hear re-engage. What can we re-engage with? I just heard your own thing, your own thing. Again, I think rebalancing, listening to our own guidance, which is different for everyone. Now I see someone with a hood on, and I can't see their face. Oh, now I can. It looks like a young girl. And I hear a song. It's that Tom Petty song, something about a refugee. No matter what happens to Trump, there's still patterns that have developed in us to protect us because we've been under attack by a narcissist. It's a most insidious, cruel betrayal of how we lived for millions of years as a cohesive, supportive group, always supporting each other. Such a betrayal of our fundamental humanness to turn people against each other with lies and rumors and innuendo. Part of a centuries-old pattern by the ruling class to have and control everything. This is how they keep power. They divide us against each other. Narcissists turn people against each other for their own purpose, for their own gain. And that recovery from narcissistic abuse takes some unwinding. That danger survival alarm that's been blaring so loudly doesn't always stop when the danger is out of power or indicted or whatever. These alarms get activated and keep us in a state of panic or fight, flight, and freeze and seeing danger everywhere. I think the song, the line I'm remembering is "You don't have to live like a refugee," is an invitation to step away from or start to dismantle that particular alarm. The damage he has done still reverberates, but the source is greatly diminished. The media makes money by scaring us, and that's how it works. By activating our alarms and hoping we'll view more media looking for a resolution. But that's not what they're into, and that's not recovery, and that's not where recovery is at. They just try to scare us more. And it takes some time, and it takes a willingness to engage with things like having fun, enjoying yourself, and restoring yourself, and learning to appreciate our emotions so they don't have to shout to get our attention. All of which can be harder than it sounds when we're in those protective patterns that have been yelling danger, danger, danger all this time. Most people in our country aren't refugees, and I've read posts online that we can't ever let our guard down again, But truly, we can take turns being on guard or something and rest and restore ourselves to be in a position mentally and physically to help actual refugees. Okay, now I see someone with a hood, putting the hood down and it's halfway off their head. They've got curly hair and curly beard. Looks like he's in a market and he's just looking around the street market, an open air market. There are clothes. I see clothes hanging up for sale. Food stalls, lots of fresh vegetables and fruits. I see a big banquet table. It's just packed full of food and lots of people talking, eating, gesticulating. And I'm getting this view panning down the table, and it's really, really long. And it just keeps going and going. This is a big feast. Now people are picking up their drinks and clinking their glasses with the person across the table for them. And there's birds flying around the people's heads like they're fanning the people and going up, 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 moving the air. I see people walking through a city in the street. The streets are very narrow and people are walking towards me and they're just walking and looking around. Somebody's holding a cup of coffee. They're just looking around like tourists. Now someone's on a plane like they're coming home from vacation. They're sleeping. They've restored themselves with community and camaraderie and a big feast with good people. This person looks very content. What can emotions teach us about dealing with moving on? I see somebody laying in their bed. They don't look well. Hair matted and kind of turning their head to one side. And now I see a light, a bright light at the end of a long tunnel. It's very bright. It's so bright it's hard to look at. I see a rose opening and closing very slowly and a few different flowers. Don't know, maybe this is some kind of tulip that's opening and closing. And now there's a couple of sunflowers opening and closing. And this is kind of different kind. I don't know what this is. I think it's a rose, but it's closed. But it's lifting up. There's other flowers around and it's kind of being exalted by the other flowers around it. It's just lifting up, but it's opening. I mean, we're all going to have different emotions and they're going to open and close. And that is what emotions do naturally, come and go, open and close. This tells such a great little story. Someone with matted hair who's taken to their bed, but then a light at the end of the tunnel. Then all the emotions opening and closing. I love this metaphor for emotions as flowers. And instead of anger and fear being wide open all the time, they're now back to their natural opening when needed and closing when done. Always there for us if needed. Anything else our emotions can teach us about how to de-Trump our lives? Oh, that's funny. I heard the word everything. I heard the word everything. I see salmon going into a hole. It's like a vertical shaft. It's round and there's a ladder on the side. And they're going down, down, down. Now they're looking up at me and they're just kind of floating. But now going down, down, down again. I see symbols on the side that are like a very abstract butterfly or maybe like a sigil type drawing. Go to ground, go to ground. What does that mean, go to ground? I guess it could just grounding ourselves, getting out of our minds, cleansing our energy in the cold water in the depths of the earth. Our minds are the least reliable part of us, and we rely on them almost solely. Fungible, what does fungible mean? Maybe integrating our intelligence and our emotion, our intuition and our wisdom and the wisdom of our bodies instead of relying solely on our minds. Relying on our minds solely has gotten us in so much trouble. I see a person sitting in a canoe or a boat in traditional garb, but I can't tell what part of the world. Every part of the world has wise traditional history. But the base chakra is lit up. They have their legs slightly apart, and the base chakra is lit up. So getting grounded, getting in our bodies, reestablishing a sense of safety. I see a baby kind of stretching, doing odd kind of little stretches, like stretching its legs this way, that way, lifting its arms. Kind of adult movements, but just, I would say, getting back in our bodies. Childlike, but as adults. Our bodies are wise and we don't consult with them nearly enough. So much valuable information that our bodies have to share with us. Wisdom that's far more reliable than our minds. Okay, that's it. Thanks for playing along. Overall, an encouraging reading with lots of healing happening. Thanks for listening.